We need to raise the standard and continue to raise the standard from the ground up.
Your past conditioning, your beliefs, you need to dump that and unlearn it and make room and opportunity for new stuff to come in.
If you're feeling that feeling at all within your gut, you need to go with it.
You have to have those people on your team who are willing to accept the change, because change is frustrating.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 24 of Apps and Asphalt. I'm with my colleague, Hayden.
Hello.
I get the pleasure of doing the intro today. I lost the coin flip. We're on episode 24, and we're going to be talking to you guys. If we were to start a pavement company from scratch with little to no money, what does that look like? So
yeah,
it's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to go over what I have prepared. I know Hayden's got some notes. I kind of was making fun of him. I was like, man, I don't have any notes. It's all right here. And he's like, oh, you're going to wing it? I'm like, well, I'm definitely going second, but.
You know, this is a perfect example of the way you think versus the way I think.
It is.
Zach thinks in a big freaking circle and goes from one side to the other. He's totally a visionary, and I'm definitely like kind of the integrator of thinking analytically. But good job on the intro, by the way. That was good. I like the spin around.
Thanks, man.
So if we were starting a pavement business from nothing. So for those of you guys who are listening, you can't see, but I have notes on my phone. And then, so I'm going to go over this. And what we want to do is, because I think we see all sides of where people are at with their companies. Some guys are, where we're at, where they got tons of crews, they got tons of stuff going on. They're closing deals left and right. Then you got guys who are just starting and want to get started, or are like spread so damn thin because they're doing everything themselves. So kind of taking all that into account of the type of people that we work with and kind of consult is what's given us kind of this recipe, or for me anyways. So let's jump right into it. And I'm going to go over some numbers too, just early on, just a couple, just to get your feet off the ground. So first, obviously, come up with the name and the logo. For me, I would not use a last name. I would use like a generic pavement name, like something a lot of guys, especially like Hispanic guys, will do, like Gonzalez Paving. And
no knock to the Mexican guys, because I'm part Mexican.
Same, but no knock. But reality is like people would rather they want to work with like just regular company names. It's weird how I think like the last names of construction companies or names in construction companies are being used, that I feel kind of holds them back a little bit from guys searching for business or people on Google. So that's my personal preference. But so come general name, logo. First thing I would be focusing on would be relationships, because with no money from scratch, you're going to be really leveraging your relationships of subcontractors, of material vendors, even, if you want to start leveraging relationships of like some different guys in different sectors, like maybe landscapers who also do work or know of customers who could have some who could push some business your way. I think that'd be a good way to start. So I would have like a budget of like $1,500, and I would just go hard on taking guys to lunch and getting to know them for like first month or two. And what I would do is I would sell to these guys that I will be essentially their best salesman. They don't have to go look for work anymore. They don't have to hire a salesman internally. I would essentially be a third-party salesman for them. Then I would drop, $500 to about $1,000 on nice company branding stuff, shirts, hats, decals you can put on your truck. Let's say you had a truck. Hopefully you do. So it leaves about $8,000 left if you had like a $10,000 budget. Then what I would do is I would pay for a website to be built. That's huge. I still see companies with no websites. I still see companies with emails that say their company first name, last name at gmail.com or at yahoo.com. I would get that stuff all dialed in and make it look as professional as possible. Okay. Then what I would do is I would fire up a LinkedIn account, and then I would fire up a Facebook account. I wouldn't do Instagram because I don't think you'll find any business there. But what I would do for my LinkedIn account is I would, again, set it up professionally, and I would target commercial and HOA property managers only on that. For my residential, I would target or for Facebook, I would target residential customers. So like go after like the mom and pop guys. So 2 different approaches for those kind of pages, and have lead forms available on my page, etc. What I would actually start with first to try to sell is, if I were to go like door to door knocking, kind of like what you did when you started, is I'd actually start with concrete driveways.
There you go.
That's a single day tear out, probably a single day pour if you can. For me, like I would try to clear like 10-15%. Let's say a driveway is like $7,000. There's close to $1,000 right off the top for just one day. So I'd go knock on those. I like concrete because less logistics. And I think you can charge. I think it's easier work overall. I think there's going to be more concrete driveways than there are asphalt driveways here soon enough. I think a lot of concrete's getting poured, especially on like new development stuff. So that's what I would start with, to just keep hammering concrete driveways. I wouldn't say no to like asphalt driveways, and I would subcontract like a seal coat or remove and replace for that time, but that would be kind of my focus. Then when I'm prospecting on LinkedIn, what I would do is I would use Loom, and I would send every property manager a custom Loom, introducing myself, putting a face to the name, letting them know I'll be there as a resource for their asphalt and concrete needs. And then why, I think the property management and private sector side would be where I'd want to stay. I don't think I'd ever go into new construction, especially early on, because we're working with GCs, because payment terms are horrible. You float a lot of this money, you have retention. So I wouldn't even touch that sector. I would only go and stay with private or residential. I think here in the near future, there's going to be a ton more property management companies fired up because of all the building and infrastructure that they're doing. I think property managers, even from our experience, they're spread thin already. There's property managers I know that they manage like 20 to 30 properties themselves. So I don't think like that's sustainable for very long. So I think that sector is going to grow. So with that, they're going to need more contractors to supply them. So that's really where I'd focus on later on. As far as payment terms, I love the model that we run, the 50% deposit, 50% upon completion. That's going to help you float through the jobs, keep the cash flow. And then this is a big one. I don't know if this caused controversy for a lot of guys, especially a lot of guys that watch it are in the owner-operator phase, but we talk about this a lot. I would never be in a single piece of equipment on a job site, ever. All I would do as the owner is I would just sell. And I would subcontract until I can bring people in there, because I'm big on like your personal bandwidth. And the more you're out there on one job site actually doing the work, the less time you have to actually grow the business. And so I think these guys hold themselves back by kind of running that model. That's personal preference, but I would never be in the machines or on the job sites doing the work. Then I would build enough capital to build my first in-house, again, concrete crew. That's where I would start.
There you go.
I like concrete. Then I would move to a seal coating crew. And then I would still sub out the milling, paving, and patching, and probably the striping as well. So that's kind of where I would go. I would start Once I hit about 100K in revenue, I would hire an assistant. This is what we call in our 8-figure playbook the level 1 owner. This is like this transition from getting out from being a level 1 owner to level 2 is hiring an assistant or somebody like your young grasshopper or your apprentice to start learning the game and how you estimate and kind of the whole business, but also to help you manage these jobs, because you'll need him or her to go check on these projects while you're just continuing scoping and trying to bring in revenue for the company. No doubt in my mind, I'd be using technology for everything. I would try to make everything as automated, as technology savvy as well. I would use spot on site photo to help scale myself so I can scope more jobs, but also so I can use the team sharing and I can send all these projects as kind of work orders to my assistant or my project manager. So he or she can stay on the job site and they can send live photo updates. They can just be there without me having to go check in on it. They'd be representing our company. But then I can communicate while I'm still doing my sales part back and forth with them just through the app. So super easy. And that was a nice little plug for us. Then I would pick up probably a patching crew. Just as kind of a small patching crew to do small patches, patch back for my concrete crew. But I would still sub out milling and paving. So kind of early on, I'd be focused on relationships and be more geared towards kind of like the consultant kind of route.
I love that.
Now that's if if I knew what I knew now. What are your thoughts?
That makes sense. I agree with you on a lot of that stuff. I think our playbook is probably similar in a lot of aspects. I like it.
Not bad.
I would change a few things around, just a couple.
Okay.
But I'll go through those.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I think that's absolutely one of the best ways to get into business and try to bulletproof it to where you minimize risk and loss right off the bat. Now, I've done this a few different ways. I've had to start companies from a little bit, and then I've had to start them from nothing, and then I've been able to redo this again as well, too. So there's a few different ways to cut this up, but I have been the guy that has 10 grand. I go and buy a seal coat tank and a crack fill machine. That was a trailer, and I'm running around, I'm trying to sell stuff, and then I'm on the backside coming back and trying to seal coat it as well. And you chase two rabbits, they both get away. So that's the one thing that I've realized. It was really hard to make sure that work was coming out right when my mind was on, I need another job tomorrow, or I need to sell, but I know I've got a job coming up tomorrow. It didn't give much room for planning on either side, which equals, zero efficiency on both sides. So I like what you had mentioned about maximizing yourself. I think that is the key going into business for yourself right off the bat, is how do I stretch my bandwidth? And I like that you mentioned technology. I would definitely invest in technology, but to start from scratch, we got to start with the name and the logo, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's important to build a brand that promotes trust, integrity, and strong right off the bat. Something that looks like it's not brand new, something that looks like it's maybe got some, maybe even private equity money behind it, or some investor money behind it. And I would not let the client know that I'm the owner. I would let the client know that I'm a representative from the company, probably some sort of business development manager or regional estimator of sorts. Because when you're first starting a company, there's a lot of different things you're going to learn along the way. And one of the things that you need to have is a patsy of, if for some reason I need time to think about a decision I'm going to make or a conversation with a client, I need to be able to take that back to my boss and have time to think about the best strategic way to get through that conversation. And so I would play the role of an estimator in that company as well. So build a brand that promotes trust, integrity, kind of like if you watch Wolf of Wall Street when he's got everybody in that garage and he's like, this is the brand that is going to promote this, and this, and then he pulls it off and it's Stratton Oakmont.
Yeah,
and
sure,
he's got the lion, and as he's calling people, they're like, who? But at the same time, they're like, oh, okay, because the brand is promoting everything that they want it to do. So something that you can grow into long term. I like your idea. I would definitely brand everything, t-shirts, vehicle. I would get something very plain, whether that's a car, a white car, brand that, white truck, brand that, make it look very loud. So it's your billboard as you're rolling down the street, as you are connecting with clients and they're seeing this, they're seeing that you have a very nice vehicle, it's branded, it shows what you do in a very loud way.
Okay.
From that point, I'd probably buy the 8-figure paving playbook.
Oh, another plug.
I would dump it all in there. Look, here's the thing. You could get all the business aspects that you need covered within that right off the bat, and it would teach you how to estimate every single facet of what we do within the asphalt and concrete paving industry from experts that have had to build their business from the ground up.
Even if it wasn't the 8-figure paving playbook, you're saying you would just pay for coaching or
I would pay
somebody.
for coaching from somebody that is willing to teach me the ins and outs. But I am kind of giving us some kudos on that because I think what we put into that is incredible stuff. That being said, I'm with you on that. We would need to start tackling website right off the bat, make sure that we have lead forms that can get filled out and you guys are able to start collecting information. I would probably sign up a virtual phone number through Grasshopper or something along those lines that give a very strong presence when people call in. So it's not you answering your cell phone all day long. You're getting somebody that's filtering through those and you're able to get back to them at your leisure. I would set everything up with extensions even on that phone to make it sound like there's accounting, there's scheduling, there's estimating, everything that you would need that a typical functioning company, well-oiled company would have.
This is gold, by the way.
And from there, I would start hammering LinkedIn. I would get to my target audience. My target audience would absolutely be property managers or people that have the opportunity to pay quickly so I could start raising revenue and start building revenue right off the bat. I like your idea about 50% deposits. That gives you an opportunity to start building some cash flow along the way to kind of get you floating. The one thing that you've got to be careful with is if you are running that model, you got to be good with money and you got to be able to understand you can't rob from Peter to pay Paul. You have to understand your profit on these projects and know that you need to be very good about paying. Leverage relationships with suppliers. I would talk to them about what I'm doing. Whatever it took to build trust enough to get accounts set up to where you're able to buy material if you need to. And if you guys want to know why that's super important, we can talk about that later as well too. But I think having those relationships set up is super, super imperative. And then from there, I would do the same thing that you said. I would start raising enough money to where my first hire would be an assistant. The assistant would essentially learn everything that I am doing and start being able to project manage jobs. I would make sure that our subcontractors understand that they are working for us. We're their client. They're not to be discussing anything with anybody else, and all reports come back to us. We would make sure that we give our clients something very clear and concise on a daily basis to give them updates, something that's different than the rest of the industry does, and just promote that you are able to quickly solve problems for people. Make sure that you guys are trying to stay within market value, market space, but it's going to take creativity. It's going to take thinking outside the box for that model to work. But this is probably the most surefire way if you're getting into the industry to get into it risk-free or as close to risk-free as possible. It's really easy to want to go buy, vehicles, trucks, mills, all this stuff when you've got a little bit of money. And to be honest with you, that's probably the ego talking, or you're really good at doing the work and you have maybe a control side of issue that could potentially be holding you back. The biggest thing is that you need to understand that you have a business that needs to run and function, and you have to first become the salesman more than anything else. Because without sales, there's no revenue. Without no revenue, there is nothing else on the backside. So I think that would be the play. That's what I would do.
I loved where you started in your example, Wolf of Wall Street. And, dude, creating a brand and company logo and name and everything is more important than people freaking think. You establish the presence up front, and then you grow into that. So like you said, by even doing the small shit, like having the Grasshopper phone line with the different accounts, that is genius. And yeah, it's going to feel a little like you're playing imposter syndrome, or you're not, you're kind of deceiving your customers, but you have to start that way to gain trust nowadays, because it's way easier for a customer to go and do business with somebody who's been around for 20 years than somebody who's been around for 20 days. And so you got to do everything you can up front to start looking like you've been around as long as the other guys have. So I love how you put that much time and effort into it. I also love when you're talking about coaching, because whether it's our program, whether it's somebody else, like the point of coaching, and a lot of people don't understand, is coaching condenses time. It condenses the time from you having to go through trial and error and headaches of learning and failing and losing money and making money and losing people and hiring on people, because you can learn directly from somebody who's been there and done that. So I like that. Even if it's, whatever kind of program it is, you need to be in contact with somebody else. But yeah, let's go into the vendor relationships, because I think you and your dad, from your dad's episode, your dad's Sealco took off because of a vendor taking a chance on him.
Exactly. People want to help people for the most part. You're going to have to show up and show faces. You're going to have uncomfortable conversations, and you're going to need to come in very humbly. When you have those, it might take some joint checks along the way to make this happen, to get everybody feeling comfortable with them investing into you, but that's part of the game. So going in and talking with people, letting them know, hey, this is what we have slated to come up. This is where I'm thinking I could go with this. Let's set some goals in place for me. 90 days out, 120 days, a year from now, I want better pricing. I want this after I've proven myself out, after I've shown you guys that I'm reputable, that I will be there on my part. I think that is the stuff that is going to go a long way with the material providers. And there's money to be made on materials. So if you guys don't know that, I know there's tons of people that don't mark up their material. A lot of them are owner-operators. That's not right. You guys should be making money on every single dollar out. You need to be getting paid on the backside of it. So markup on material, markup on equipment and labor, markup on subcontractors, and start figuring out where you want to go with everything. But that would be the ticket.
Would you put the material like early on? Would you have the material costs going through you or through your subcontractor?
Whenever you're able to buy the material, it's typically a win as long as you have estimated it properly and you're not going to go over budget on material.
Yeah.
If you miss on material, or your subcontractor lays something thicker, say they remove more, it's a 4-inch R&R and they remove 5 inches, you're going to bust. You're going to have to manage those jobs really well when you are buying the material, just to make sure that everything is lining up along the way. My answer would be, if you feel like you can keep track of it, you trust the contractor that's placing it, then yes.
Okay. What another question too. What is the biggest dollar amount of project you would accept and do work on starting off? We'll call it within your first, 6 months.
Our first 6 months, we did just under $1 million in 2015. We had, I want to say 3 projects that were over $100,000, but probably between $100,000 to $125,000 that year. I probably wouldn't stretch a whole lot further than that, but I would not be afraid to take anything up to that point either. So as long as you guys are comfortable with the scope, you guys have access to what's coming, I would do everything I can to get my hands around bigger projects.
Okay. Which, I mean,
as long as you're getting deposits, especially if you can get deposits, that really opens stuff up. And so if on a $100,000 job, you're making $20,000, you've got an extra $20,000 and you're getting a deposit on that, almost advance yourself 10 of that 20 right off the bat to go back into operating capital to keep yourself maneuverable, to potentially hire somebody sooner than later, or whatever it is.
That's a good point. Yeah. So if just depends on how you collect your money, basically, how big of jobs you can take.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I wouldn't do a $100,000 job and do bill upon completion, especially doing for property management, because they ain't paying within 30 days. I'll tell you that.
Right.
So it's just stuff like that you got to think about. Go ahead.
I like your idea about going door to door on residential. It's a quick way to start getting cash flow funneling through, making sure that you clearly outline payment terms up front with the client. If they're not doing deposits right off the bat and it is a day job, making sure that they have at least a check ready for you when you're done. But I would still make them give a deposit on that work.
Yeah, I still would too.
That's the one thing about residential is they're quick paying, but they're the hardest clients to appease because they live there and they're going to look at every single detail. There's stuff that you'll get called back on that, you maybe didn't document the right way. If you use Spot on Site to help document everything, it's going to help alleviate future problems as well.
God forbid, like when the concrete truck's pouring and it splashes on the garage, you don't notice it, and they're holding out on the quote unquote $7,000 if that's the price of it, until you get a power wash to come in and come power wash it. Well, maybe the power washer's booked out for a couple weeks, and you're just out on all that money for so long. So that is the difference in residential work, obviously, is being more mindful to it, because these guys there's more nitpicky and challenging obstacles of just them living there that you have to deal with on that. What if, so you start with like the subcontracting model of like bringing in partners. What if your client shows up and says, "Hey, I thought you guys self-perform," and they see a different company's logo on there? How do you alleviate that?
I like that. The way I would mention it to my client is, we do self-perform. We self-perform, and we have a network of partners that we use across the Front Range, the state, the city, the country, however you want to present it, and just say, when it comes down to it, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of your needs. Whether it's scheduling that is done in-house or through our partnership, it doesn't matter. We're making sure that quality is still there, that scope is still going to plan, and at the end of the day, we're making sure that you get what you paid for. The warranty is still in place. Everything else is still in place. I'm just being a resource for you guys.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is coming back to schedule. And when we still subcontract a ton. And does it come up? Not very often. I don't think the clients worry about it as much as we think they might worry about it at the end of the day. You're fixing their problem.
Yeah.
You're taking a headache off their plate. You mentioned when you had enough money, what would you invest back into? I like that you said concrete. Concrete has seemed to proven to be, strong, healthy margin for us. I would probably go with infrared, and it's probably partial because of like my family's background, but also at the same time, I like the model of less employees, the better.
Yeah.
I love infrared because it's a 2 or a 3-man crew and incredible margin. You're able to fix the biggest headaches out of everybody's problem, which is potholes. I mean, potholes, liability issues. So you're able to repair asphalt right off the bat. It goes a long way, and it's a nice big vehicle that's rolling down the road. I wouldn't get a trailer mount. I would get a truck mount unit that you can tow a trailer behind right off the bat, and it's just one unit that you have to worry about on the road instead of 2 trucks, one that's towing the trailer and the other one that's towing the roller. But that's what I would do. And then I would partner with some seal coat companies as well and tell them that I could get in there and help them do their patching, pass them seal coating along, and have them start, one hand wash another and start building a strong alliance that way.
Would you ever restart a purely only striping company ever again?
No.
Why not?
I take that back. If I started a striping company, I would subcontract every piece of striping that came through the door. Same thing goes with the way that we started Field of Pressure. We subcontracted a ton as well. There's no reason to self-perform all of this stuff, you guys, and take on all that risk if you don't have the money to float not only the payroll but the certificate of insurance, which we didn't talk about. You guys got to get a strong certificate of insurance and general liability. Make sure that you guys have workers' comp. You guys can't be set up as sole proprietors. It's got to be set up as an LLC or an S corp or some sort of corporation, because when you go to turn in your W-9, your COI to go get paid, they're going to see that you're a sole proprietor, you don't have workers' comp, or you don't have auto coverage. It's important to pay for that stuff up front so you have the bandwidth to take on a nice project, 50, 60, 70K that comes in, and you don't look like a sole proprietor with a huge, nice name behind them.
Yeah, that's a great point, too. Like all the background money that it takes to keep your business afloat. I mean, and even all the regulations and in my opinion, the less equipment, the less guys, like you said, the better. And so like starting a company, what that takes out is essentially the production side of it. You're essentially an upfront, all-around salesman and manager. And so that's why it's so important to work on your sales skills. And for you guys that are contractors and you've been doing it your whole life and you're great at paving, you're great at laying concrete, or you're great at seal coating, that doesn't always mean that you're going to be the great best business person, because it's a completely different ball game. So what I would do in that position is I would pretty much shift my whole skill set, because you have the knowledge and you have the expertise of what it takes for a successful project to happen. You know all the logistics of it. Use that and learn or pay for coaching on even sales skills on how you can do that, because like you said, customers, we kind of overthink it, like, oh shit, our logos aren't out there, we're subcontracting, they're going to see we're not the company we said they are. That rarely happens, if ever, and that question comes up. So that means is you got to really work on that up front, because all these people want to do business with is you. You can make or break your company and the appearance of your company by one bad sales rep.
Yep.
We've lost a big portfolio of customers from one bad sales rep. And, they don't care about whoever the other 30 people working at National Pavement Partners. One person burned that whole company for them.
Yep.
So that's why you need to make sure, like you being the salesman, you're always answering your phone. You're always there shaking hands, and you're always emailing appropriately. You're looking sharp when you meet with them, because people want to work with that, because they're not going to go and talk to your crews and ask about why you have the pothole or why you missed that spot or why your striping is wrong. They're going to talk to you. They're going to talk to you instead of your guys. So you represent everything of how your customers perceive you.
Yep, that's a great point. Really good point. A virtual office would be important too. It gives you guys the ability to capture mail, to look like you have an office front, to give you a very professional look on your emails, on everything. Another thing that just provides trust with clients, with everybody. Google needs it to verify your address.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't run it out of your house. Spend the little bit of money per month and get a virtual office with it.
Another approach I thought of, like just starting up, and this came from the guy that was on our podcast 2 episodes ago. His name is Adam McChesney. He's a digital marketer for the contracting space, and he's figured out the digital marketing game so well for a landscaping company and like a glass repair company. He's figured out how to run the SEO play so well for these that he has started those kinds of businesses just because he has so many leads coming in that he hires a guy who knows the industry to help produce it.
Wow.
So you can almost do another approach of partnering. If you are the paving guy who's, you're great, you've been paving your whole life, you know how to do it. You can start by partnering up, giving some equity stake to a good digital marketing company that just handles all the upfront lead generation and kind of upfront sales, and then you do the actual production side.
That's a great idea as well.
There's still a gap, but I think, so you said, sales are lifeblood. I totally agree, but I think before sales, it's leads.
It is leads.
You have to have leads. You have to have opportunity coming in, and unfortunately, these guys don't know how to get opportunity, or they don't spend enough time focusing on how to generate opportunity to where they're just looking for work and playing the reactive owner operator role of like being on site, and then kind of like you said, your head was on the current job, but you were still kind of thinking about trying to get a next job. You can only like be present kind of where your feet are, and you can only work towards where your feet are and what you're currently working on. So that's why I'm like, if you're starting a business and you're the owner operator, you got to get out of that as soon as possible, because you should be playing proactive and booking your schedule out and having guys in the background working and producing, so that way you're continuing to move them forward, not playing like, okay, we'll knock these jobs out. Now we have 2 weeks down because we don't have any leads or jobs that has been closed because I haven't been able to estimate. So now I got to do that again for another 2 weeks, and then I'm out again, and it's just a cycle. I feel like you guys fall into.
It's a vicious cycle, and it's daunting. It will overtake you quickly. So staying ahead, if you guys are in that cycle currently, maybe think about how do you shift things a little bit to relieve yourself, because you need to wake up ready to play your best game every single day. And if you guys aren't doing that, then you're probably falling behind. And I know that feeling's not fun. So
when you were starting up, how did you finance, or how did you get into your first like big piece of equipment? What was your first big piece of equipment that you purchased?
So it depends on which company we're talking about. My first company, I had really good credit. I was able to go to my bank. I bought like a 1,500 gallon seal coat truck. I bought a nice Craftco melter tow behind. I bought like 3 trucks. What else did we do? We were set up pretty well, the very first company. Second one, I lost all of that stuff. I ended up having to file bankruptcy. My second business, I bought a seal coat tank and a melter, and I was going around and I was pretty much knocking on doors, seal coating the driveways or whatever, and working off a cash basis. I was really, really, really hard because I took my 10 grand and went and bought a seal coat trailer. So I would, even if you guys have that and that's where you're at, I would look at sell that piece right now. Keep your truck, keep the wheels. You could always use a truck, but sell the piece of equipment. Let it go. When you realize that you're making money quite a bit and you see where you're estimating things, you're starting to see where the profit margin lies, that's when you can look at buying your first piece of equipment. what would the first piece of equipment be? What could it be? Paving is always risky if you don't have the right guys. You guys need a strong crew to produce paving work. Always good stuff to sub. Same with milling. I would not get back into milling again. I would go with the infrared, man. The infrared, or like you said, concrete. It's easier to skid, truck, trailer, forms.
And that's it. Yeah, much less expensive than a $500,000 paver, and mills are probably up there too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and I think one thing we didn't realize when we got the mill was like the teeth.
Oh my God,
those are expensive.
And it's not just the teeth; it's the holders, which are even more expensive. If the guys don't change the teeth, then the holders are getting chewed into. Oh man,
filling up the water and the hydrant. The hydrants.
Filling out. How do you figure out how to fill up? You can't use a garden hose.
Yeah. Do we want to tell that story? The first.
Oh
story?
My gosh.
So
yeah,
it's a good story.
We'll save that for another time.
You want to save that? All right, we'll save that one. But yeah, so those are kind of like some things that we wanted to share with, if we were to do it all over again from scratch, how would we start one of these businesses? And I think for sure coming up, like being in the trades is going to be the goal. Like it's going to be the standard. There's going to be so much wealth and opportunity into starting a trade or construction business. But if you're like in our sector and want to get into like pavement maintenance and that kind of stuff, that's kind of our take on how we would start it. I mean, you've done a handful of them, so you've done the hard, and it takes more than obviously just what we're talking about. Like there's a lot of shit you got to go through and you got to eat to figure it out. So it's one thing to have a plan, but then when you get your first hit in the mouth, what do you do after that? So
Yep.
Super cool. We're looking for some ideas of what you guys want to hear from us. We got plenty of more topics we can talk about, but we really want to hear what you guys want to learn about or hear about from our experiences, etc. So shoot us a DM on any of our social media messages or social media platforms, Also, we're still open for the 8-figure paving playbook. We're still taking companies. We get a lot of you guys are busy right now, so it's been a little bit of a slower start, to be honest, but we still have companies that are coming in, and we're opening, I think, a lot of eyes as to way guys are running their businesses, man. And we're just excited to give that knowledge to you. It's a total investment. So if you're spread so thin you can't even make 1 or 2 hours into improving yourself and your business, then we don't want you part of the group. We're looking for guys that are serious, that want to actually make changes. So check us out for the 8-figure paving playbook. But yeah, this was a fun episode. I like hearing your feedback on it.
Yours too, man. Thanks.
You want to close us out since you opened it?
You close it.
Okay.
I like to talk the least amount as possible.
You talked a lot this episode, though. But episode 24 of the Apps and Asphalt podcast. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys next week for episode 25.
Thanks.